A Mighty Wind, The Annals of History, by Lord Blackwater.
Chapter 20. Carry My Heart on the Wind of a Fart. Vigella was gone. Where she had gone, Corfart didn't know, and truth be told, he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Barnaby knew little of his mother. They spoke of her rarely, and any questions Corfart had played down. But Barnaby was now older, and the questions seemed to be coming more frequently. The two made it by on their own, staying on the land where the Rashimi had been for so many generations. Corfart turned the land and started a farm. He'd sell his crop to the nearby town of Longville, and though it was often enough for the two of them, he'd have to blow a few indecent fairies on occasion to make ends meet. The tee-hee-hee giggles as they came was unnerving for Corfart, but he blew all that fairy stick for Barnaby. Corfart hadn't heard much from the Rashimi since their departure. He'd receive a few farts, but they were often just short updates. The Rashimi had the unique ability to send messages via farts. They'd rip one into the wind, and the fart would carry to its intended recipient before softly whispering the message in their ear. You had to be careful, though. Farting the wrong wind and your message was going in the wrong person's ear. It was better this way, Corfart had thought, not to hear from his people. He didn't want Barnaby to know of his Rashimi ancestry. The pain Vigella had left behind made Corfart want to distance himself as much as he could from the people her family had once ruled over. No, in his mind, he and Barnaby would be simple farming folk, planting, harvesting, and fucking the odd goat here and there. Standard farming practice. Barnaby would blend in. No one would know of his hairy ass or his hidden cum-catcher. No one would ever know what power lay between his legs. Pussifer gently rubbed up against Barnaby as the two of them waited. The cat had wandered onto their porch a few years back and had never left. Corfart at first resisted. He never liked cats. Said that pussy was bad for you. All it does is break your heart. Barnaby wasn't sure what that had to do with a cat like Pussifer, but he didn't much care as long as he got to keep him. Now the two of them had found themselves back on that same porch, waiting for Corfart to return. It was a Tuesday, which meant Corfart was likely out helping Doris get her oats. It also meant it could be a while before he returned. Barnaby passed the time by examining Pussifer's asshole. He was the only feline that Barnaby knew who had 3 assholes. As great as that sounded, it meant more glands to get clogged up with ass juice. Barnaby used his knife to poke and prod at some of the more clogged glands. On the biggest one, he made a small slit, which earned him a stanky puff to the face. Barnaby coughed as Pussifer meowed in thanks.
Told you not to flick his bean too hard. Gotta let him get the cheese out naturally,
Corfart said, coming around the corner of the cabin, covered head to toe in oats. Barnaby's stinging tears had caused him to miss Corfart's approach. He cursed softly as he continued to wipe his face clean of the cat cheese.
I know, but he's so uncomfortable. I just have to help him,
protested Barnaby. Corfart chuckled to himself.
You have always been more compassionate than me. I'm not sure where you get it.
Corfart paused for a moment before smirking and grabbing a nearby stick.
But maybe I should try to be a little more generous and help you release your anal glands.
He began chasing Barnaby with the stick as Barnaby ran away giggling. This was always a favorite game of theirs, pop the anal gland. They could always come back to it no matter how tough the day had been. It never failed to make them laugh. Corfart finally caught up to Barnaby, teasingly jabbing him in the rear. They both fell into a pile of leaves near the edge of the woods. The setting sun hit their faces ever so gently. Once the giggling ceased, Barnaby asked,
Maybe I get it from Mum. The compassion, I mean, not the swollen anal glands. Barnaby, we talked about this,
Corfart replied sternly.
Your mother didn't have compassionate bone in her penis. She left us without ever looking back.
But, Dad, interjected Barnaby.
Enough,
Corfart suddenly shouted.
No more questions.
Barnaby knew not to continue. They hadn't had a solid conversation about his mother in several months. Barnaby didn't necessarily miss her. In fact, he was starting to forget he even had a mother altogether. But he also felt that she had left some sort of a void in him, one that even the three assholes of Pussifer couldn't fill. So Barnaby sadly conceded and quit on his line of questioning. Instead, he decided to quiet his curiosity about his mother by watching Pussifer catch fat squirrels. He heaved and panted with effort, but despite his loaded glands, Pussifer was able to jump high enough to get one of the juiciest squirrels.